Hey everyone, hope you all had an amazing week and hopefully made some money this month. If this is your first time checking out my channel, I do a monthly update every single month recapping all of my trades, the winners, the losers, and my P&L overall in the account. And if you couldn't tell from the thumbnail, almost all of what I do is sell options, which is what you're going to see here in a few minutes. But before we actually dive into all of my trades for the month, let's hop over to the TD Ameritrade website and take a look at my account value over the past month. Now, taking a look at the very beginning of the month, October 1st, you can see my account balance started at $158,455. And over the course of the month, it steadily increased. As of the end of the month, it was $174,290. Now, I wish I could say that roughly $16,000 increase in account size was entirely due to option selling. I wish. Most of that actually probably came from my ETFs or my long stock positions increasing in value. September was a pretty rough month for stocks. But you can see that my account value did have a nice little increase over the past month, about 16 grand. So hopefully we see that continue going forward. Now let's go ahead and take a look at my trades next. We're going to go up to the My Account page and go to Cost Basis. From here, we're going to go ahead and narrow this down just to the October trades. So October 1st to October 30th. And now down below, we can see all of my trades for the month. Now, starting off with the very first one, we can see I sold some Apple 141 puts as well as the 132 and 133 puts. I didn't hold any of them for very long. You can see this one was only 4 days, 7 days, and 12 days in this case. But in total, I made a profit of $243.82 on Apple for the month of October. Next up in the list there, you can see I sold a put spread against Amazon. I sold the 3,200 put and bought the 3,195 to create that vertical put spread. Now, technically, with naked options approval and portfolio margin enabled on my account, I could have just sold a naked put against Amazon. But this was going into earnings and I wasn't really willing to take the risk in that case. And even though Amazon had a huge downward move after the earnings announcement, I think it went down about $150, I still ended up making $72.87 on this trade, which came out to a total profit of about 70%. If we go to Thinkorswim, we can go to the account statement page and throw in Amazon up here. You can see that I originally sold this for $1.05 or $105. I ended up buying it back for 30 cents, which again was about a 70% profit overall in the trade. Now, I didn't end up holding this through earnings. I closed it out right before the announcement. I wasn't willing to take the risk. Now, in this case, it still would have worked out fine, even with that 150-point downward move. But again, I thought 70% was good enough, so I took it off. Going back to the TD Ameritrade website, you could see I've got Activision next up there. I sold the $78 put as well as two $83 calls against some shares I was assigned of Activision the previous month. In total on Activision, I made $216.35 for the month of October. But I am still holding on to those 200 shares, and hopefully we see it come back up. I might continue selling covered calls against it. I'll take a peek at it this month and see what kind of premiums I can get on Activision. But the next one up there we can see is Alibaba, BABA. I sold the 195 call against some shares I was assigned about a month ago now. In total, you can see I generated $74.94 in income on BABA. But unfortunately, I do still have 100 shares at 195 and another 100 shares at 200 still in the account. And Alibaba's trading at around 170 currently, so I'm not sitting too pretty on those at the moment. But with earnings coming up here, hopefully we get some good earnings news. They hopefully have a beat and we see that stock price come back up. But it's another one I'm comfortable holding, especially at these depressed values. Next up in the list there, you can see I sold some puts against Coinbase. I sold the 240 puts, the 212.5s, and the 220 puts. And in total, I generated $2,832.25 in income. Now, a lot of that, the $2,553 you see there on the 240 puts, that was from a previous roll, and I'm just recapturing all the losses that I had in September from that roll. But I'm still sitting in the green overall on Coinbase for the year, and quite a bit actually. Now the next one up was Corsair. You can see I sold 5 of the 27.5 puts as well as 3 of the $32.5 calls. Now those calls were against some shares I was assigned the previous month, and they pretty much expired worthless. I did buy them back, but only for a few pennies. You can see I made $215.38 on those covered calls, but I did lose $985 on the puts that I sold. Now that loss is technically realized for this month, but I did just roll them out in time. Going back to Thinkorswim for a second, if we throw Corsair up here, you can see that I bought to close those 5 27.5 puts for 15 October and sold 5 new ones for the following month and generated another credit of 73 cents. Now that added to my previous credit is almost making up for the loss I'm currently holding on those contracts. And with another roll, I should be fine back to break even with Corsair trading at around 25 bucks. Either way, it's a stock I'm comfortable holding. If we were to go to a chart right now and throw in Corsair, you can see it is trading quite a bit lower, currently around $24.44, but it's got a pretty low PE. Gaming is continuing to grow, but we could see it go down a little bit in the meantime, and I'm comfortable holding the shares if I need to. Now, after Corsair, you can see I sold some puts against Disney. I sold one of the 160 strike put and 4 of the 170s. And in total, I generated $524.68. Now, that was even with Disney having some incredibly low volatility, which means I wasn't paid very much for those puts that I sold. But it's a company that I really like. I like it for the long run. I love Disney Plus. I love the parks. I'm not really sure what's going to happen in the near term. I know, at least I've heard in the grapevine, there could be some strikes on the horizon, so we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But I still like Disney for the long run, and I'm willing to take assignment on some shares if that ever happens. Next up in the list there, you can see I sold some options against Intel. I sold the 52.5 puts and the 52 strike puts, and in total I generated $413.62 in income. Now, luckily, I did buy back all of those put options right before earnings. They didn't have the greatest earnings announcement. They sold off all the way down to roughly 48 bucks a share. But that's another one that I honestly wouldn't have mind getting assigned on. I still really like Intel. They're a powerhouse. They make a ton of money, especially compared to their competitors, NVIDIA and AMD. Now, AMD's got a lot more growth potential than Intel, but Intel's making a boatload of money, and I'm comfortable owning the stock if I need to. You can also see in the list there, I sold some options against Lucid. I'm a huge fan of those EV companies, and I sold the 22.5 puts, the 21 puts, and the 22.5 puts. And in total on those guys, I generated $163.75 in income. Now, these were mainly weekly options. You can see the 22.5s that I sold for 5 November. I only held those for 9 days. The 21 strike puts for October 22nd, I only had those for 5 days. And if we open up the 29 Octobers, you can see I only had those for 3 days or 4 days, so very short time durations. And I'm really trying to incorporate a small amount of weekly options into the portfolio. I mainly do like 30 to 60 days out because I like that lower volatility in my portfolio. But I am trying to generate some extra returns in here on a monthly basis, so I'm going to start incorporating some weeklies in here and see if I can bump up my monthly targets every month. Now, after Lucid, you can see the next one up was another kind of meme stock, was Palantir. I sold the $22 puts for October 15th as well as October 29th. That was a total of 10 contracts. And across the board, I generated $237.01 in income. After Palantir, you can also see the SoFi options I sold. I sold one of the $16 puts as well as 5 of the $19 calls. Those call options were covered calls. They weren't naked. I sold them against shares I was assigned the previous month, and I'm currently at a loss on those shares at the moment. But in total against those SoFi options, I made $161.22 in income. Next up there was Tesla. You can see I sold quite a few. I sold the 620 puts, the 645 puts, the 600 puts, and the 660 puts. And in total, I generated $1,394.82 across the board. And even though Tesla's had a huge push up recently, I think I'm going to continue selling put options against them. Their volatility has expanded back to where it was about a year ago. They've been trading a lot lower lately, in the 40% range, but now they're back into the mid 70s, which means I can get a lot more premium for those same options that I've been selling. Even staying on the same strikes, like the 640 strikes or 660, I can still get about $2 selling about 2 to 3 weeks out in time, so you'll probably see a few more in next month's update. Now, last but not least, I did sell a few options against Walgreens. I sold the $45 puts, the 47.5s for 15 October, and the 47.5s for the 29th of October. In total, across all those options, I generated $253.82 in income. Now, adding all of those up overall for the month of October, that comes out to a total of $5,980.91 in income. That's a total return of roughly 3.5% for the month, which is definitely within the target range I'm trying to hit every single month. If you haven't watched my previous videos, my low end goal is about 1% for the account, and the upper end typically sits about 3.5%. Some months are better, some months are worse, but that's pretty much my target. Now, since my account sits right now at about 175K, that means on the low end I'm trying to get about $1,700 a month in income, and then the upper end range is about $6K a month in income. And for the month, I was right at that upper end range. I'm hoping to increase that, but I don't want to take on too much risk. So it's kind of a balancing act, trying to get as much money as possible while also trying to reduce the risk as much as possible. And like I mentioned before, my bread and butter strategy for this portfolio is typically selling options about 30 to 60 days out, and then trying to stick to the 30 delta range strikes But lately I'm also trying to incorporate some of the shorter time duration options, like a week or two out. Hopefully that new experiment leads to some increases in my monthly income, but we'll see what happens. But that's about it for the past month. Hopefully these monthly updates are helpful to at least some of you guys out there. If you guys have any questions at all, please leave them down below in the comments. I'd love to help if I can. Please remember to hit that like button on your way out. Let's all try and make some money this week, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.